Broad-faced Photoroo. The broad-faced Photoroo, Photorus platyops, is an extinct podoroid marsupial that was found in southwestern Australia. The first specimen was collected in 1839 and described by John Gould in 1844. Only a small number of specimens have been collected since. The last live capture was in 1875. Subfossil remains indicate that it had an extensive distribution around the semi-arid coastal districts of southwest Australia. The habitat of the broad-faced Photoroo is almost entirely unknown, but unlike its relatives, such as the long-nosed Photoroo Photorus tridactylus and long-footed Photorus longipes, they do not seem to have lived in dense understories in forests. Preserved specimens indicate that it was smaller than other Photoroos at around 300 mm 1 foot long with a 180 mm tail. Their weight is estimated at 800 g. Their coat was grizzled with yellowish hairs above and grayish-white below. Their body was similar in shape to that of other Photoroids. Their ears were small and rounded, muzzle fairly short, and cheeks notably puffy. Taxonomy. The first description was published by John Gould, 3, using a specimen obtained by his collector John Gilbert at Walyima Swamps near Northam, Western Australia. Gilbert visited this inland region while collecting around the recently established Swan River colony. The site he referred to was determined to be Lake Whaleyermooring. 5. The single specimen forwarded to Gould was presented to the Linnean Society of London, and the partial skull and skin of a female was deposited in the British Museum of Natural History. 5. There were few collected after Gould's initial description. There was one animal collected by James Drummond and recorded in a letter in the 1840s. The collector George Masters prepared 4 specimens in the 1860s, presumably when he made a large collection of taxa at Mordup. The last collection of living Photorus platyops was in 1874, collected by William Webb and are now held at the Macleay Museum in Sydney. 6. Curator and collector Hedley H. Finlayson described the remains of a Podoroian animal found in a South Australian cave, which were similar to the Photorus platyops. However, the bones were retrieved from a site far from where the Photorus platyops was thought to be found, as well as the teeth being different from previously collection specimens. He ended up naming it as a new species, Photorus morgani. The specimen was later identified as a Photorus platyops. The skull that was studied and was held at a South Australian museum, amongst a deposit of multiple taxa from Kelly's Hill Caves, which was collected by A.M. Morgan. The specific epithet morgani refers to the collector. Finlayson's 1934 description recognized a close similarity to this species. When he obtained more specimens, which were collected at the same cave system on Kangaroo Island by Edith May, he obtained a second partial skull. 5. Comparison of the dentition and other morphological characteristics was limited to works published by G. R. Waterhouse, 1846, Oldfield Thomas, 1888, and B. Arthur Bensley, 1903, whose descriptions of P. platyops are recorded at the BMNH. 8, 9, 10. Common names include broad-faced Photoroo and a name from the Nyungar language, Mota, 11, which was recorded by Gilbert and noted in Gould's 1844 description as Morta, and Mort or Mort by other ecologists writing shortly after its extinction. 3. The name was obtained through an interview with Nyungar peoples at King George Sound by Gilbert. 6. Early records show that it was also named the broad-faced rat kangaroo. Description. Illustration by H. C. Richter in Gould's Mammals of Australia, 1863. The broad-faced Photoroo is a member of the genus Photorus. It is described as having a relatively broad skull and shorter muzzle. The species is presumed to have become extinct sometime after the last recorded capture of the animal in 1875, and sometime before 1905. The color of the pelage is grayish-brown at the upper side. Straw yellow hairs are interspersed through the fur to give a streaked effect. The underside and the flanks are pale gray. The head and body are about 305 mm in length, while the tail is about 178 mm long. Clarification needed: their hind feet are about 54 mm in length and their weight is approximately 800 grams. 14. Their noses are short and blunt, which is an unusual characteristic among podarines and is usually associated with species such as the rufous betton, Epiprimnus rufescens, and the desert rat kangaroo, Caloprimnus campestris. 15. Ecology. The behavior of the species has not been recorded. 14, and nothing is known of its diet. The scant record of its habitat includes those provided by John Gilbert's informants, one of whom said, "All I could glean of its habits was that it was killed in a thicket surrounding one of the salt lagoons in the interior." 16. An assessment of documents prior to the 20th century concluded the only ecological change to affect the population were anecdotal reports of a disease, similar to one that had resulted in the sudden absence of similar species. A synthesis combining other historical evidence proposes what may have been an epizootic during the 1890s that precipitated their extinction. No historical evidence could be found to link the conclusion of South African collector Guy C. Shortridge, writing in 1910, that ecological changes such as bushfire and the introduction of cats were directly linked to the species' decline. Guy Shortridge searched extensively for this species on his collecting expedition near Bremer Bay, finding Photorus gilbertii skulls at caves near Margaret River, but could only provide the historical details of this species provided to him in his 1910 report. The information he reported, assumed to be from Nyungar informants, was that the species became extinct in 1905, were similar to the quokka in range and habits, and had been commonly found and often captured in large quantities. 17. 6. The remains were examined the following year, along with the remains of a dibbler, which was found along with the P. Gilbertii remains in a deposit beneath a moving dune system. Another set of bones were found in and midden beneath a large peppermint, Agonus flexuosa, which was assumed to be the feeding roost of a predatory bird such as an owl. This site, near Hunter River, was partly preserved by a sand dune and included species introduced after the colonization of Australia, possibly placing the date of these remains within recent history. 18. 6. Subfossil remains identified as P. Platyops were also found in a survey of deposits on the Eyre Peninsula, accumulations that may have been middens of pre-colonial peoples of the region. Distribution. The few records of live specimens are restricted to southwest Australia. The species could have already been near extinct when Gilbert obtained his specimen, and no specific localities are known with any certainty. 14. 16. Subfossil remains indicate a wide distribution range, extending from the southern to the western regions of Australia, including Nullarbor Plain, and perhaps as far north as the Northwest Cape region. Remains have also been found on Kangaroo Island. Some evidence indicates that P. Platyops, like the desert-dwelling rat kangaroo, Caloprimnus campestris, was already in decline when the invasive European rabbit became established in the species' former range. Scientific classification. Edit this classification. Domain, Eukaryota. Kingdom, Animalia. Phylum, Chordata. Class, Mammalia. Infraclass, Marsupialia. Order, Diprotodontia. Family, Podaroideae. Genus, Photorus. Species, Platyops. This your host Orlando Valido Pimp Orly, like they call me on YouTube. I'm back doing animals podcast of photos and of the animals that we have to care and protect at all cost. Thank you for watching my podcast about board-faced Photoroo. This your host Orlando Valido or Pimp Orly, like they call me on YouTube. This my first podcast in a very long time about animals. I will try to put myself back on camera with some pictures and videos next time around. What happened to me now is that I had the cold or the flu a few weeks ago. I'm not 100% fine yet for talking, still have a cough that is still bothering me, but slowly it will go away. I think it will take a long to do so. In the meantime, I will do the podcast this way with the help of my computer voiceover software. God bless you, Guy. Thanks for being a long time fan loyal of my channel. Orly Valido.